One question, so I don't forget to ask, is you mentioned you had dances at the country club. What was the country club that you had your dances in high school? Do you remember?
Johnson City Country Club. This is where we went and caddied this golf.
Mm-hmm.
And so they held quite a few parties out there. And I know a couple of instances where some of our buddies that wasn't invited, well, they would come out there because they'd have, I don't know where the food comes from, quite a bit of food, platters of food and what.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd come and pick on the window, and one that would hand them some sandwiches and whatever. So they would come and pick on that window. And so anyway, one of the people that owned it, that was the country club there, seen us doing that, said, "What are you doing, taking in trade and giving the people food out there?" And then I think they called the law, and when the law drove up, of course, they took off, But it was a matter of them just getting the sandwiches, But mostly, I don't know, they'd have the senior prom and a lot of dances out there.
Is the country club still there?
It's still there.
Still there.
Is it the one next to Lions?
It's out,
is it
it's out in
closer?
Carnegie. Yeah, it's out. It's a section of town called Carnegie, and it's out on East Jamaica. Far out on Jamaica there.
You were going in the late 40s. You were going to high school at the time. The Cold War is just starting.
Right.
Not knowing what you know now, and obviously the Cold War was not a distant thing when you joined the Marine. But going through high school, what did you sort of think of what was going on, particularly with regard to the Cold War? Or did you give it much thought?
At the Yalta conference, I remember when Stalin and Churchill and Roosevelt went over there and met, and they more or less gave in to a point to the Russians before they took over the Czechoslovakia, Romania, and some of those countries, and that's where the put communism in, and we didn't have much say so.
You were aware of that even not at that time. That was, and did you expect? How do I put this? Did you expect that you might be fighting communism
didn't think that we'd be in against the Cold War.
Yeah. Let me make sure. Is there anything about Johnson City that, because you're a native also of Johnson City, and I guess particularly, how has Johnson City changed from the Johnson City that you knew growing up in the 1930s and 1940s?
It really hasn't changed that much. I think when it was like 35,000, and I think today it's only 52,000, maybe 55 at the most. So it hasn't grown that much. But it might be in the future. They just opened up that new highway going through Irwin what's the name of that highway? Anyway, it's an express, and they used to, tractor and trailers used to go on and come all the way to 81 to hit I-40 and go back to Asheville. Now they make a straight shoot through there. So there's a lot of fast food places there now. So it has changed quite a bit just recently.
Yeah, but still, you find there's a lot of continuity of the Johnson City.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The downtown was more was booming downtown, right, back then.
Yeah.
Now it's more empty.
Everything then was booming downtown. I mean, you go downtown, it was just sidewalks were just full, had people going everywhere. And now it's more isolated downtown, and of course they got the mall. That's where it is in most towns now. But there's not a whole lot downtown still. There's still some stores, but not a whole lot.
I did have a question about high school. Like when the Cold War started, I guess, before you left to go to Korea, did you notice a change? Were they starting to do these drills yet about, what would happen if they were, I remember a lot of the commercials on TV back then, I think, were be prepared for anything. Were you doing that kind of stuff in high school at the time?
You didn't start civil defense drills, did you?
No, we didn't.
That came later.
I remember things were rationed, and just gasoline was rationed. Yeah. It was hard to get certain foods and whatever.
So rationing really sticks.
Yeah, rationing. You got the rationing book. It sticks in my mind. We got the rationing books, and we would have to use them to. Of course, we didn't have to worry about gasoline because we didn't have a car.
But you got the rations.
Yeah.
So what did you do with the ration for gasoline? Because that was pretty valuable.
We gave them a In fact, I think a couple, we'd sold some of them, the rations, for the gasoline. It was,
Do you remember any black market activity up in the Johnson City? Not that even rumors of it or
no, not really.
yeah.
I'm sure some of it was going on, but
Yeah, but you didn't. There was no. Because I've asked this question, I've gotten very interesting stories sometimes about. What about? Did you have a garden growing up?
yeah. Now that's one thing we call them victory gardens.
Yeah, so you did have a very deliberate victory garden.
And my mother and we put us kids down to have a hole, and that's how I learned to work the garden. And we had a pretty big garden, and of course and she canned everything.
Mm-hmm.
She would can like we'd go out and pick blackberries.
Mm-hmm.
She would can them, but all the foods that she would can, and of course that helped us through the winter months because she canned.
So you always had a garden growing up.
Yeah, we always had a garden growing. We sure did. Yeah, and that sure helped tremendously.
What about a general? What did you think of? What did your family think of Franklin Roosevelt when you were growing up at the time?
He was tops. We were Democrats for him all the way. Yeah, my mother and all my aunts and uncles, and he started Social Security, and he did so many things, But yeah, we was.
You were at the time. You were a solid Democrat.
Yeah, solid Democrat. Yeah.
Because I mean, what struck me is East Tennessee is a pretty solid Republican. Yeah, but you were not.
But we were, we were Democrats then because I was Roosevelt.
Did any of your? You mentioned being on relief. Did any of your brothers or your mother ever be? Did they ever have a public works job, like a WPA job or? No. And what did you think of Harry Truman? But more before you go to serve, I'm sure.
I'll tell you what, he was another one of the top presidents in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He made the decision on atomic bomb, and I think that partly ended a war, and of course it saved maybe 1 million troops by doing that. But yeah, I was, and him firing MacArthur, of course I was right in the middle of that, and of course I didn't know exactly the reason why, but after reading about it, what have you, he kind of bucked wanting things. In fact, I heard that he had wanted to drop something like 10 or 12 atomic bombs and get into China. And of course, what we was trying to avert was we didn't want another world war started, and so we didn't want to get China involved. And of course, they got involved anyway, and of course, we didn't want to make the Russians mad to get them involved. But Russia was involved anyway in the Korea because I run into some of them personally.
Well, you were prison.
Yeah, while I was in prison.
And we'll be sure to ask you about that. So you stayed a Harry Truman. You were consistent liking Truman.
Consistent like yes, yeah. Sir, I sure did. He was we was behind him and liked him and all the way. I think he did a tremendous job.
Well, before we ask about your war, the Korean War, is there anything we forgot to ask you about growing up because it sounds like there's some. I'm missing a good story or two still because the watermelon story is a great one, and also passing sandwiches at the dances out are So I want to make sure there's not a story that we've.
Yeah, we used to have this hog pen holler, which was about a block away, and some of the neighbors would have their hogs over there, And of course, we were always pulling tricks, and so we would build a trap for when we knew where the neighbor went carrying his slop bucket, to the pigs, these 5-gallon buckets, and so we get back and then watch him hit the hole. And then cuss, Of course, we would be in the background, but we would set those covered up with leaves and where they'd be the path, And then he would hit and the slop could go everywhere. And of course, he knew that we were probably involved, but he couldn't catch us, Some of those things.
So
and I know we had another neighbor that we would get. What we would do too is get a pocketbook, a woman's pocketbook, and put it out on the highway, and get a string, a thread string, and it'd be filled up with leaves or something, and these people would come by, and they would hit them brakes and skreek, and they'd run back to get it. And as soon as they reached over to pick it, we'd start pulling the cord on it. And I remember there was a truck that, he drove the leather down through there half a block to stop, and both of them jumped out at the same time, the driver and one of us, and they were racing to see which one got it. And as soon as they did, we pulled, and it made them mad. They ran up the bank, got it anyway, and threw it at us. And also we would get these 25 back then. Everybody got the 25-pound bags of flour, and we'd stuff them full of leaves, and in the grocery store, which is maybe a block away, we would get out there and be kind of like dark, and we would do the same thing, tie a string to it, and then they'd come by and think somebody dropped a stack of flour, Of course, they'd stop and go pick it up, and we'd pull. It would make some of them mad since that we'd pull the trick on them, But that was just part of growing up.
So you had your group of friends. You did some pranks. It would be fair to say.
We did do a lot of pranks, and we had this next door neighbor that he would. We would get a string and get it all the way across the street and slam his screen door. Well, he could never catch us because he would be peeping, and you'd hear the door, and he'd run out, and all of a sudden he wouldn't see no one, but we'd be across the street, pulling it. And so one time, he got mad, and he pulled out a shotgun, and we were all, and this field was open, and the shadow of the telephone pole was where we just ducked down in, and he shot, and right over our head and hit another house and broke a window out. And I don't know if he was just shooting over our head, but of course we hit the deck, but we didn't do that anymore. But yeah, we were good at pulling pranks.
Were there any pranks you did in school? Do you remember?
Yeah, they were. I remember one. We would get this trash barrel and put it over a door, and we'd watch this during our lunch hour, and it seemed like the janitor would get in more than anybody, but some of the teachers, it got a few times. Of course, they never know who it was, but they would pull the whole garbage can right down over them. It was mostly just wet towels and this type of thing. But I remember one time my brother, he locked this whole, what is it, industrial shop was, across it was one class across the hall. So he went and got the lock and just locked the whole class in there. And anyway, they called my brother and myself and one others and said, well, now we know that you know something about this, and we want to know if you tell the truth. Of course, we were raised to more or less tell the truth. And my kid brother said, yeah. I said, it was me. And so they let us go, but it was about 20 minutes before they could get the lock off of the class to get the other class, But some of those pranks they pulled.
And I guess I should ask you, because you've mentioned football a lot, what do you remember about playing football? And it sounds like you liked the sport a lot and were pretty good at it. What were some of your highlights of?
I was my first year in high school. Of course, I played junior high ball. I was then it was just a big 5. Now it's a big 9 or something now. There's Kingsport, Bristol, Johnson City, and Irwin, and McLean. And I was voted. I made the all conference my first year, and we had my first year. We had a big team. We had one guy that was 2 guys that was been in military service that came back and still played football. And this one went in paratroop. We lied, and I think he was only about 13 years old. And told him he was 17, and he was in there maybe a year and a half before they found out that his age, and they kicked him out. And he came back and played high school football. And this guy's name was Homer Pease. Well, he went ahead and graduated and went out to East Tennessee State and went back in the military and made a career out of it. And he got up to a captain, and he got killed over in Vietnam. Big tackle.
But he was on your.
Yeah, he was on our football team. We had another that was in the Navy the same way. A lot of guys allowed about their age to get in. And back then, seemed like back in the 50s, they had values, and they were patriotic, and they just wanted to join the service. And like I say, as one of my buddies, we just all went in. different branches, a lot of it, but it just went in. And so this one that played football, played in, he and I went on to East Tennessee State College later on, reminisce a little bit about the old times. In fact, the group of a lot of guys that I played with, we meet the day after Thanksgiving each year, and this has been going on back since the 50s, and they call it the Delbert Marks Memorial Tournament, golf tournament. And there's about 50 guys that comes in Johnson City there the day after Thanksgiving, and we go out and play golf, and then afterwards they go down to a place called the Cottage. I guess you know what the Cottage is. They go down to pizza and this type of thing. And out of that group, there's 2 of the guys that's millionaires, and we still meet and play golf.
And why is it called the Delbert Memorial? I guess
it was more or less like a joke toward me because I was poorly killed.
So it is a joke on that.
Yeah. And they called it Delbert Marks Memorial Golf Tournament, and it's still going on today. The guys meet and we got our high school. I was talking to her earlier. His name is Sidney Smallwood. He was a high school football coach. He was assistant coach, but he was head basketball coach. And then he went on up and he was athletic director. And then later on he was a principal. And then he was superintendent for about 2 years. And yet today he still comes to that golf tournament there. He's there and he's 88 years old and still playing golf. But he's one of them that shows up. And then a couple of other coaches too. Hal Littleford, I don't know if you heard of him. He played at the University of Tennessee down here, and he's noted for the longest. He had a 100-yard return, putt return that was called back. That was what he was mostly known for. That was called back. But anyway, he shows up some because he was my college coach. And you see, I came back and I played college ball a couple of years.
The group that you get together every year, how many are veterans of either?
98, 99% of them.
Well, we'll have to give you some dear veterans to put letters to pass out because we'd love to interview more of your group, your memorial group.
I got one that's he's a captain. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, and he said I had a little influence on him a little bit going in, but he went in his own Vietnam, what have you, and he went on and came back and was had ROTC at Daniel Boone High School. He had it for about 19 years.
In fact, I may send Lindsay out with forms next next Thanksgiving break. What did you think in high school you wanted to do when you finished high school? Or
well, of course, I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. Of course, they
even before the war had broken out. This is before the war. I mean, before before Korea.
I didn't really know if I was. I was after I graduated. I was wanting to go in the military. Then,
yeah, no matter what
I was going in the military.
Yeah. So the Korean, you would have gone in even if there hadn't been a Korean War.
I was going to go in, because my brothers and had already been in, and I heard from them, between brothers and the Navy, and he'd come in on leave, so I knew I was going in before. And when I came back, of course, they tried to talk me in. They said, I came out as a corporal, and they said, we'll give you buck sergeant if you'll just re-enlist. And I said, no, I'm going back to college. So
this was after being a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
They would have made you a buck sergeant.
Yeah. And so I told them, I said, no, I was going to get out and not go back to college.
So had you thought while you were in high school, did you think you would go to college? Was that part of your plans? Or
at the time, I hadn't really decided. All I just wanted to go in the military because all my buddies had already gone, and it was just a matter of thing back then. Everybody was patriotic and they wanted to join. They wanted to get in action.
So you hadn't really thought past the military. It was
right. I hadn't thought past the military. I didn't know really what I was going to get into.
Were you in college prep, or were you sort of in a general curriculum or a trades curriculum when you were in high school?
When I was in high school, I guess I was just general, but I was more major in industrial arts.
Industrial arts. That was the bulk of your course.
And the woodworking and dental shop. And that's mostly what I majored in college and minored in health and PE.
Mm-hmm. Did your just two more things, and there may be more. Did your high school have a junior ROTC program?
Yes, they had an Army ROTC, and if you played football, I think it was option. You didn't have to be an ROTC. Most of them, my kid brother was not ROTC.
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't.
You weren't in that, but they did have one.
They had Army ROTC. They sure did.
And did your high school have any fraternities or sororities?
No.
No, you didn't have those. And you mentioned your twin brother, who was a year ahead of you in school. He joined the Navy, and this was before the Korean War.
Yeah. Well, no, it was.
When
Let's see. Yeah, it was before the Korean War. Sure was, because I think he went in 48, 49. Yeah, I think he 49 maybe. Yeah, that was before the Korean War started.
Did he finish high school? Your twin brother?
No.
No, he left at 11th grade then.
Yeah.
To 10th grade to join the Navy.
Yeah.
Was he of age when he?
Yeah.
Just turned 18.
17.
Do you remember when you before we move to Korea? Do you have any more questions about Johnson growing up? I just want to make sure. Yeah. When did you first hear about the Korean War? I mean, do you remember?
Yeah, I remember when it broke out. We stayed up. I mean, I was at the age then, and I read the paper and kept up with what was going on. And June of '50, when it broke out, and of course it was in January '51 when I went in. And of course, when I went back and got my GED before I went in college, because
yeah. But when you heard the news, did you think that this was going to be your war? I mean, you had thought of joining the service, but
yeah, I cared less. I mean, I just wanted to get in on it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get in on it, and thought it was our duty.
Well, and it also said you could have just waited for your number to be called, so to speak, to be drafted.
They were drafted again, but we all volunteered out of that 35 group that went in the Air Force. We all just one time went.
And it's interesting because as you recounted, you really wanted to be a Marine more, but you also liked hanging out. You wanted to be with your buddies. Yeah. So.
I do have a question about that. I know you said your brother had sort of an influence on the Marines. Did anything else influence you? Like, did you see any, like, Sands of Iwo Jima? Did you see that about the first
I remember
Marines?
seeing those. It could have had a bearing, but I guess since my older brother was a Marines and I had a brother-in-law that was a Marines, and he was in the Air Force part of the Marines, I guess that part had more of an influence. But like I say, I went in with my buddies that was going in the Air Force, and then after I didn't want to wait, and then I went with a couple, and then out of the two that I went to the Marine Corps with, one of them stayed in for like 30 years, made a career out of it, and the other one stayed in for 6 years, and both of them are dead today. One of them, he retired. He hadn't been retired 2 or 3 years. I don't know how a heart attack or something.
I'm curious. There are two buddies. You remember their names?
John Thomas and Chick Farrell, Charles Farrell.
And who?
In fact, I run into Chick. He was a boot camp guy. We went out in Camp Pendleton, California. We were together, and we were in the same outfit, but the station same time. We still ran around some, and then went to Korea together. Of course, I'll tell you the story later that I ran into him on the front line.
And which of the two friends became a career? Who made the career out of the?
John Thomas.
John Thomas.
He played football, and he went in his 11th grade. Still had another year eligibility, and played first team football. And like I say, about a third of that group, one of them went in the Army, and he went in military service. Just volunteered. That's how Tennessee gets his name, because he volunteered.
That's right. Absolutely.
Where did you sign up to join the Marines? Because you described earlier how you tried to, how you signed up for the Air Force. Where did you go to sign up for the Marines?
I signed up in Johnson City, and then I had to go to Nashville for the physical, test and everything. which I said, but I had to go to Nashville for the physical, and then from Nashville I went straight to Paris Hall.
So when you left home for Nashville, you didn't come back to Johnson City.
Right. Until boot camp was over.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the Marine Corps, it is a close-knit outfit, and they say that once a Marine's always a Marine. But I remember the first day that we was in civilian clothes, and they called our names off and said, "This is Tomb 72," and said, "This is your sergeant." And I remember him come over, and the first thing he says, "Get them hands out of them pockets, throw that chewing gum away," and says, "Throw them cigarettes away," and say, "I want to let you know I hate every one of you. Before you leave here, you'll hate me." He said, "I want you to hate me." And we did. And I said, "God, what have I got into?" But buddy, it was discipline all the way.
I'm curious because you had a brother who had gone through the Marines. What had he told you about boot camp? I mean, particularly once you knew you had signed up for this.
He told me that he said it's much harder than the Air Force, much harder than the Army. And in fact, we had longer. I think we were 13 weeks. I think the Army at the time was maybe 10 weeks. And it was harder. And it was just like being in prison for 3 months because you didn't even have the Army, you could go to the PX anytime you wanted to. We couldn't. And
when could you go to the PX?
The only time we'd go was he'd take us and he'd tell us what to buy, toothpaste, and then he said, "I'll see you back out here in 30 minutes." And that's it. We couldn't go.
There was no lawyering even. And
this is strictly, they just led us by hand everything we did.
You remember still exactly what your sergeant said to you after many, this was over 50 years now.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, because there's things from some very good stories lurking, what made you hate the sergeant so much? There must have been some particular,
Well, it was, of course, you had to serve.
Yeah.
Serve, yes or no, sir,
Yeah.
and all this. But after we graduated, you would serve him and say, "Now, wait a minute." He says, "You're a Marine now, and I'm a Marine, and you don't serve NCO." He said, "Just officers only when you serve." And he says, and of course, then he led up, and we were Marines, and which was a big thing on graduation.
But before you become Marines, he must have given you some interesting. What sticks out in terms of your sergeant, which at the time, really,
we were. I mean, when he said anything, we jumped. And he would even tell the guys that smoked, he would let you know when the smoking lamp was lit. And that would be rare. And otherwise you didn't get caught. And I remember one time I got something like 5 or 6 letters from home, and I had to go double time and get the mail for the whole company for a whole week because he thought I got too many letters. He said, "You must be writing a lot of letters home or something." So he made me double timing with the whole pack of mail and double time back. And you had to double time everywhere you went. If you went to the bathroom, you double time, and you come back, you run. And there wasn't too many jokes going on because you're afraid you'd get caught. But I remember one time I was on guard duty, and I seen both sergeants. There was nobody there. They left. And usually when you holler 275 outside, well, everybody runs, and you got a spot you get into because they got it in rotation and where you're supposed to be and height and all that. So I got out there and hollered 275 outside. And one of the other Marines had seen me do it, but everybody run out there, and I knew the sergeant was gone, and I was saying, "Boy, everybody's standing there." And they said, "How is it?" I won't say the word. Marks is when it did it, So, "Man, you would get us all killed." So you find out. So
there was some salty language being.
Some salty language for me pulling that trick, because that was taking a real gamble. And I remember one time he had a rifle inspection. And he went to the first rank, the second rank, and then, of course, he came to see one dirty rifle. He said, "All right, we're going out in the boondocks here. We found one." See, they want everybody to a unit. You help each other. If you have trouble marching or anything, how to do something, you help each other to make sure you get it. You're a unit, team. So anyway, we went out in the boondocks, and he got sand, and he just put it in everybody's boat, with rifles, whatever. And he said, "All right." So he took us back and said, "I want you to fall out in 30 minutes. Those rifles better be clean." And sure, after 30 minutes, we fell out. And he was going down the ranks and he found another dirty rifle. He said, all right, we're going out and back to the boondocks. And we did exercise, I know, for an hour almost with the rifle. He says, anybody tired? And everybody said, yes, sir. And he said, we'll do it a little while until you're not tired. We did about 15 more minutes. He said, now is anybody tired? Everybody says, no, sir. And he said, good, we'll do it a little while longer. But the bottom line is we got the point. We would check each other's rifle to make sure that it was clean.
But it also sounds like that's the way you would really hate him at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly you've all cleaned your rifles, and he put sand in all of them. That was.
This one Marine that he said, yet to this day, if I run across that drill instructor, I'll whip his. You know what? he never. But usually they don't mean it because they want you to hate them, and it's just like if you're in combat, they say. First squad move out and said, wait a minute, they're shooting machine gun bullets at us. You don't think, you just follow the order.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to do.
Your instructor, was he career Marine?
He was career Marine.
Sergeant
Gryko.
Sergeant
Gryko.
Was he a World War II veteran?
He was a World War II veteran. Yeah.
Had he seen combat?
See, that's why the Marines, they say, now, if you was in the old Corps when it was rough, well, see, the old Corps, we was in the old Corps because most of those sergeants had stayed in, and they were career sergeants that was from the Second World War. All of them had war experiences, and they knew what it was all about. And we made a name for ourselves over Korea because those North Koreans, they didn't like fighting those soldiers with yellow leggings, and Marines had yellow leggings. And he said we didn't... They didn't like fighting those soldiers with yellow leggings. In fact, they would send out patrols to bounce off in the front line to find out where the Marines were. They didn't want no part of us.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
In terms of your unit in training, where were people from? And before I forget to ask, you were in South Carolina. Is that where you did? Yeah. You did not. You didn't go to San Diego like your brother. You went.
Most of the guys, I think they were only about, there was one from North Carolina, about 5 or 6 from Tennessee, and the rest of them was from Michigan. And all my buddies I was around, I got separated from the Tennessee boys. We was all in one platoon, but I didn't sleep with them, this type of thing. I was from Michigan, and yet I still correspond with a couple of them that they live in Michigan, Iron Mountain, Michigan. In fact, I got a call here a couple of months ago from one of them. He stayed. He was a drill instructor himself later on.
So you in the Michigan.
Yeah, I was in Michigan. Yeah.
You melded together. You formed friendships. It sounds like
yeah.
Yeah.
You form friendships and you stay together. But of course, when you go in combat, they send you here and there.
Yeah.
I was in infantry training, but when I went to Korea, they put me in engineers, and I was a demolition man then.
Did you have any Black Marines in your platoon?
I don't think we had any.
Any that you saw on the base in South
There might
Carolina?
have been 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, but
very few. And in Korea, there was quite a few that I seen that was in the Army,
mm-hmm.
but not the Marines.
What else, before I ask you some more specifics about basic training, what else really sticks out that you remember? Any things that stick out in your memory about?
I know one thing, we couldn't get enough sleep. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it would hurry up, and you'd have to wait for this and that, say like in line. And you never could get enough sleep. And I remember one time that he gave us maybe a 10-minute break. We were out doing a bivouac. He was lecturing and whatever. And anyway, he gave us a 10-minute break, and I just shut my eyes, and all of a sudden I was asleep before I even knew it. And he said, all right, Marks, get up here. And his nose was about that close to mine. There was 2 others, I think. And we had to march this, we called it SOB Hill, because it's almost straight up. And we had to get a full pack and go up that hill and without stopping, and then come back. And of course, we made it, but well, we was wore out by the time we got back. And he says, "No, you don't go to sleep unless I let you tell you." But I remember that was one incident. And I remember another incident that you go through this training with grenade, and they had these concrete pits, and of course they teach you how to pull the pin, and you can stand there and hold that grenade all you want to, but when you release that, the handle flies off, you got from 3 to 5 seconds to get rid of it. And some of those cocky Marines later on, they would count 1,001, 1,002 to get an air burst, but not when you're going through basic training. So anyway, you get up there and you pull it and you throw it, So this one Marine panicked, and he threw it to the side before he threw it over, and everybody ran and hit the ground. And I mean, shrapnel flew everywhere, and I think it nicked a couple of, but it wasn't nothing, no danger. But that was one time.
What would happen to that Marine who?
Oh, I don't know what. He panicked. He just panicked.
Yeah. You don't know what happened.
I don't know.
You don't know what.
I think he got set back a couple of weeks. I think that's what happened.
What do you remember about the food? If the food and did you ever do KP?
Listen, yeah, I did KP. The food, I found a home. A lot of guys that go in the military say, "Man, I couldn't stand that food." But buddy, from what I went through, I found a home. So, because we just did. I mean, it was real eating. As far as I'm concerned. And but I know one thing. I got you had to eat pretty fast, because if you wasn't through when that sergeant hollered 275 outside, you left everything and you moved. And a lot of time if they'd be punished, they had to eat the square meal.
Well, you eat in court. This you'd have to eat it at angles. So that was punishment.
Yeah, and I remember those sand flies. There was bad, and when those sand flies hit you, and sometimes it flies away, you see a little blood comes out or something, And I know as soon as the sergeant would be standing there at attention, as soon as he'd say at ease, the guys would be smacking everywhere, and those sand flies. And so one of the guys, one time, the sergeant kind of turned his head, he could see him peripheral vision, and he reached up and smacked one, and boy, he turned around, he got this right in his face, and he says, and this was right after the lunch, we were standing in the picture, He said, "You eat your lunch, now let them have theirs," or something to that effect, But he didn't, he just wanted to get a point across that you stand at attention, that no matter what, you're still at attention. It's just part of carrying out orders,
Was there anyone who in your platoon in training who couldn't make it? Did you have anyone who just?
No, in fact, our outfit, they had the time you took these obstacle courses, and in honor platoon, you have to finish like 98% percentile in every phase, like swimming, rifle range, shooting rifle, and this type of thing. So we broke the obstacle course record in time, our group, and we went because I know I was in better shape in my life. I played high school football when I went in, and so we wound up as honor platoon. Which was the elite.
Yeah, and so you didn't have anyone. People have told me stories. The guy who never cleaned, and they'd have to throw him into the shower, and you didn't have any. It didn't sound like you had any real foul ups in your.
They had such a discipline that if the guy had trouble doing something, everybody fell in and helped him out to make sure he did the proper thing.
Well, it sounds like you became pretty cohesive after one or two. Like you've described the rifle. It sounds like that didn't happen too much after that. Yeah.
After that, it didn't happen too much.
Yeah. Looking back at it, how effective was your training when you got to combat and then you were POW? What was good about your training, and were there any shortcomings once you actually got?
It helped bring me back, and it helped me bring me through what I went through. The discipline. See, I was with about 35 pilots that got shot down. A lot of those guys had problems. They weren't physically able to keep up, marshalling and whatever, and quite a few of them passed away, different things. But Marine Corps grunts, they call them soldiers, foot soldiers, whatever. I mean, we just we did our part and did extra stronger ones, you know.
Mm-hmm. So that physical training, which
Oh, it helped.
it really did make a.
It sure did. And a lot of those guys that would give up, and I know this one guy that we tried to make him eat, and he wouldn't. This was after POW. He was his name was Lieutenant Dawson from South Carolina. He was a B-29 navigator, and he got weak and he quit eating. And I just tell him, you know, of course we cannot eat it either. I'll go in later on what he was eating or whatever, but he got so weak that I had to go help him unzip his pants when he went to the bathroom. He just got so weak, and then the day we started our march out north, while he went into a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we knew that.
Yeah.
But other pilots had some problem.
And you really did sense it with even at the time it was the training, the different.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I would do push-ups and different things. You go through a period where you didn't care where you lived or not, but I just said, hey, I'm going back. And the Marine Corps training, in fact, like the Marine Corps, is the old saying, it was a short time, but you learn enough to last your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And yet today, I still get out there and walk 2 miles a day. You know, it's just part of the old Marine, you know.
That notion of physical fitness, yeah. That. Well, you also had this childhood that, you know, I just was thinking.
Yeah, it was a rough child.
But in the sense that I just was observing one day, every now and then when I live in West Hills, and I walk to the gym, and I walk to Barnes & Noble often, and I just observe how few kids are out playing. And I've just been stunned, even in my generation, which wasn't that long ago. And I was even somewhat of a bookish kind of, you know, as a kid. Still, I played outside, you know, and that was just common.
Oh, yeah, now.
Yeah.
Computers, TV.
Yeah.
Games. Yeah, I've got some grandchildren. They're going through that now. 2 of them overweight. You know, try to get them right. If you don't mind with it.
Now, you mentioned you were trained for infantry in the Marines.
Yeah.
And in the sense that all Marines are infantry.
Right.
But still, was that your assumption you would be infantry Marine?
Right.
How did the you know, did you have any say in this, or how did it come that you were transferred to engineers?
If someone gets killed or they need someone to fill that spot, sometimes they filter them out and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would just be in the Marines in the front line, you know.
Yeah.
But I went in as a trainee demolition man. Mm-hmm. We handled C3, C4, 50 call, what have you. Demolition man.
When did you get assigned to the engineer? Was that when you got?
I went first. When I first went to Korea.
Oh, so it wasn't in the States that?
No, it wasn't in the States when I first went to Korea.
So after you finished basic,
and then went to Camp Pendleton. That was advanced infantry training.
So you had advanced then after?
Advanced infantry training. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about advanced?
Yeah. I remember one time we went on a 5-day bivouac. And we went something like 85 miles from Monday through Friday. And every day, you know, we'd go in and run in, and they had aggressors.
Mm-hmm.
They had a different type of helmet on, if I did. They were Marines, but they were aggressors, the enemy. And they made it as much combat as possible, like you'd get 1 canteen of water a day, and that was to brush your teeth, drink, and what have you. If you got rid of it, you didn't have no water for the rest of the day. And you had sea rations, which you have in combat, and we had sea rations, what have you. And we had night training and how to take a town. And I know we had towns set up that little villages with aggressors in there, and then we made just like you would be taking a real town, you know, and sergeant was barking out orders about squad advance and hit so-and-so and what have you. And I know, I said, all right, my squad, I had to run across and I know I heard a machine gun, you know, of course it's blanks and what have you, and they had spotters. And they said, hey, you're dead and you're dead and you're dead. So I know at one time I got out of it to watch the rest of them take the town because that's just part of it, you know. And then at nighttime, I know my brother was telling me in the Second World War, the Japanese would be so close, they'd be hollering and say, "Hey, Moline, me come kill you tonight." Well, they would holler the same stuff, you know. "Hey, Moline, me come kill you tonight." And these flares would go up, and you could hear these guns going off and the flares and what have you. And of course, we'd have to fight our way out of there. And it gave the personnel officers as well as sergeants command on carrying us through it, you know, whatever we had to do. And I know one time we got part of the desert there in California that we went through, and here they come these enemy corsairs down, and we had to run because they was strafing and what have you. And I remember they drop these leaflets and say, if you want to surrender, this is the easy way out and this type of stuff, you know. So they gave us a little bit of training on that part, but not after if you did get captured, because nobody ever realized that you wouldn't be one of them, or you wouldn't be one of them that got killed. You know?
So they never gave you, I mean, it's a very relevant question. They never gave you.
Then they do now, but not then. They didn't give anything if you were captured. Of course, you give your name right.
Yeah, you knew
Yeah.
that part you knew, but that's all they said then.
Yeah, that's all.
They didn't say, and then,
No,
you know, this is what might happen to you.
no, they didn't do that. And you never did dream that you'd be one of them
Yeah.
that would get killed, or one of them would get captured, or, you know, you just did your job and follow out orders, and that was it.
I'm struck that it sounds, well, you thought very highly of your basic, and it sounds like your advance was also quite thorough.
Oh, it was. It was very thorough. They had the different instructors and go over the different phases and, you know, on how to shoot the different weapons. And one thing about the Marine Corps, whether you're a cook or whatever, you learn how to use the different weapons, because you never know when somebody machine gun gets knocked out.
This begins an interview with Delbert Marks on February 20th, 2004 at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee with